What's up, everybody? You're listening to episode 31 of Just Breathing with Laud Lungs. It is episode 31, right?
I don't know.
I don't know. I think so. If not, I'll edit it. I'll just put a dub over and I'll be saying 31. Yeah.
And then all this won't make sense.
And then all of this won't make sense right now. Yeah. So welcome back to Just Breathing with Laud Lungs. Been a little while. Finally made it back into the studio. So when this is coming out, we're going into the Independence Day weekend. So I thought we'd talk about freedom.
Yeah.
I thought we'd talk a little bit about liberty, pursuit of happiness, America, all that type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I've been in this weird mental state where I've kind of been really trying to find my place as an American lately. I don't know if you've ever gone through that. We come from a Christian background, and especially in America, there's this weird Christian / American thing that doesn't really exist in any other place that I'm aware of. In any other,
there's not a Christian Albanian thing,
right?
Is that what you mean?
Yeah. They're just Christians who live in Albania.
Yeah.
But there's this weird thing where Christians who are Americans are I don't know. I don't. It's not it's synonymous, obviously, because we're a multi-racial, a multi-ethnic, a multi-religious nation. And we've really, honestly, gone very far away from our Christian roots as a country. Christianity is mostly a mockery now.
Yeah.
It's not. I'm a Christian.
Right.
I think it's pretty great.
Yeah.
But it's basically mocked in the mainstream, which is sad. But honestly, I'm not here for people's approval, the news's approval, or
right.
Hollywood's approval. So I don't care about that type of stuff. But as a Christian, though, I have this conversation that's always going on in my mind of what is my place as an American, as a Christian.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, that makes total sense.
Do you ever think about that type of stuff?
Well, I think it's interesting that you say that, because at first I didn't know what you meant by that, but now I understand. I don't know if I ever struggle with that necessarily, but I think that I have found that I struggle with realizing that I've put on American Christianity to my faith. So I'll realize, as I read the Bible, I'll be like, oh, wait, that doesn't actually match up with what culture has told me is okay as a Christian in this country.
Right.
And I have, I'm trying to now that I've kind of noticed that, I'm trying to really take a step back, which I think is healthy to do whenever you read the Bible. But I'm trying to take a step back and being let me look at this with fresh eyes. I want to know what it's saying to me and to the person that's reading it across the world.
Right. It should say the same thing.
It's saying the same thing.
Right.
So I'm and I think that the culture, the American culture, has influenced us, the Christians, instead of the way it's supposed to be, which is the Christians influence the culture. The culture has influenced us.
For sure.
And so for me, to answer your question, for me, it's more of stripping off. Wait, this doesn't fit. This doesn't fit. All these things that don't fit in faith, in my what is true faith. Yeah,
I mean, that's really good. I wasn't actually going in that direction. I wasn't, but I like what you're talking about here, because that definitely is another conversation that I have with myself a lot. Is what parts of this American dream are a good interpretation of some of the principles that you can find in the Bible that I should be living out, and what parts are an American Christianity that is a lot of times it's not even it's completely antithetical to what the Word of God is saying.
Oh, well, yeah.
Like it's completely antithetical to the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even because you can't just you can't twist the Bible,
right,
and it'd be anything other than like opposition to it.
Right.
I mean,
there's no twisting.
The Bible is very clear. Like we're just reading in Timothy right now, and Paul is writing a letter to Timothy in these books of the Bible in the New Testament, and he's saying to him, be careful. There are already people that, and this is so crazy to me, and it kind of gives me a little bit of hope because like you see so many hypocrites, and you see so many, we're all hypocrites, but you see so many pastors who are preaching an American gospel, and it's so hypocritical because if they actually open the Word of God and preach that, they wouldn't be able to say some of the things that they're preaching.
Oh, yeah.
And it's so sad, but at the same time, it's so cool to read the Bible and know that Paul was dealing with that at the very beginning. So this isn't like a new thing.
Right.
Like we shouldn't be worried and be like, oh my gosh, Christianity's going to craps, look around at all these pastors preaching some other gospel. And Paul was writing to Timothy
to watch out for that.
To watch out. And he was naming names. Mm-hmm. He was like, hey, this person has already given us issues. These people, they already oppose the gospel that I was preaching.
Yeah.
Just watch out, know what the true gospel is, and stick to that.
Yes.
I've taught you what it is. Stick to it. Stop listening to all these other voices that are out there and stuff like that. And I don't know why that was like comforting in some way.
No, it is. That stuck out to me too. And one other thing that he said in Timothy, I can't remember if it was first or second, but he was saying how like when he made his first defense, I don't know if he was talking about like in Rome, but he said that everyone abandoned him.
Right.
So like even the believers like were like standoffish.
Yeah.
And that was in a weird way encouraging to me too, because I was like, okay, wait, like Christianity, like understanding the fullness of God or more of God's plan through Jesus in this time was brand new. Mm-hmm. People were still like, wait, I'm scared.
Yeah.
Like there wasn't like Paul was kind of a rarity. Now, there was a lot of others
even in the early days.
In the early days. And so I was like, okay, so like this isn't easy. Like we think it's easy. America tells us it's easy.
Right.
Like America has made it religion. America has made it do this and you get this. It's all about us again.
Right.
And so I was just kind of like, oh my goodness.
Consumeristic.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We're like a consumer culture, so like we like to consume religion in the same way.
Right.
It's easy.
It is easy.
It's easy. I think that's why Catholicism was so successful. I mean, like I think some of the principles of Catholicism are great, like forgiveness and confession.
Right.
Like that's a really if people applied that in the relationships, that'd be great.
Right.
And if you apply that in your divine relationship with God, it's really great.
Yes.
It gets weird when there's a priest sitting there and being that connection between you and God.
And then it's unbiblical then. There is when it stops.
Right. And then it's like, what?
Wait, Jesus already did that.
Right. Jesus is our high priest.
He's doing
that. It. Yeah.
But something else interesting about the whole like freedom thing that I did read and really stuck out at me specifically about freedom is in Timothy. And once again, I can't remember where it is, but it was Paul speaking about being gentle, but he was saying like, I want you to be gentle when you're correcting people because it's God who will grant them repentance and give them the knowledge of the truth so that they will be, but bear with me, so that they will be set free from the enemy who has them held captive to do his will. Okay, so I summarized that to say, I saw it in a new way. I was like, okay, wait. So when we are, like, when we're born, we're born in sin. Mm-hmm. Like when we're born, we are already held captive. We are not free to, like, we're serving the enemy. Mm-hmm. But I just thought it was interesting because it's only when we choose Christ and we have that ability to choose, can we then choose to do anything other than serving the enemy. I mean, once again, now we're serving another master, but he's good. Like,
right.
But you only have two choices. But I just thought that was interesting. I was like, wow, like, so it's so cool that America got it when we first founded this country, that we had that idea that there is like freedom to be had. Like, and now I'm talking about physical freedom, but like, it's such a powerful thing that we can say it's so easy to be dominated by a government, and that they put all these intricacies in line for us to have those freedoms to do what we want,
to try and prevent that,
happening. Yeah. And it's just it's not an easy. Freedom isn't easy.
No,
freedom isn't easy.
No, and I listened to we talked about that one North Korean defector on the one podcast, and like, I listened to another interview with her today, and like she made a statement, and it's so true. She's like, freedom always has to be fought for. You're never given freedom. Government will never give you freedom.
Wow, yeah.
You always have to fight for that freedom.
Right.
And we see this being true in so many aspects of society. I mean, the most recent example of this would be gay marriage. Like, they fought to get that right.
Right.
You can debate if it is a right. You could debate all types of arguments on both sides, but they fought for it and they gained that freedom. That's what a right is.
Right.
They believed they should be free to marry.
Right.
And it's like, and it was a fight.
Yeah.
There was deliberation, there was activism, there was like all of these things in play to gain that thing.
Right.
Yeah. And
so it's not a light thing when.
No, it's not. It's never a light thing.
When we let them take our freedoms away.
No.
Even a little bit.
No.
It's not a light thing.
No. And that only comes when you are comfortable, scared. And that's usually the two emotions that government is able to come in and take your freedoms away.
Yeah.
You're too comfortable, you don't care that much. I mean, that's what happened.
I think scared is a good.
Yeah, it is mostly out of fear. Like 9/11 happened, we got Patriot Act 1 that allowed the government to spy on us in the name of fighting global terrorism. And we gave that up pretty willingly. We're like, get that, SOB Bin Laden and take some of my freedom. That's fine. Patriot Act 2 came along under Obama. And that one we weren't really okay with. But we don't really have representatives anymore in Congress that actually speak for us.
Yeah.
And they've never really spoken for us. It's always really needed to be the people hounding their representatives. And we've kind of lost a lot of that voice and that ability to really directly impact and influence our representatives, because they're so distant from us. They're so like, they're on a different playing field when it comes to their financial status. You know, like they're not coming to hometown games anymore.
No.
You know what I mean? They might come to a town hall meeting. They might come to, do some speeches and greet some people and shake some hands. But like, especially senators, like they're a different breed.
Right.
As it were. And yeah, the only way that we're really going to get our voices heard and say this is not okay nowadays is through activism.
Yeah.
And it's sad because activism has taken such a victimization stance that it's lost a lot of its power. Like there was activism in the 60s when it came to the Vietnam War. And that was real activism. That was like,
can you remind me of that?
Sure. So like
I'm not good with my history.
So yeah, we got into the Vietnam War under odd circumstances, to say the least. There's a lot that was going on during that time, and there's a lot of blame that could be thrown around as to how and why we involved ourselves in this war. The simple answer that you'll get, I don't know, at least when I was in school, who knows what it is nowadays, but the simple answer was that we were trying to stop the spread of communism in Asia.
Okay.
Because it already infected, Korea. It had already infected China. Obviously, that was the main hub of it. But a lot of support was coming still from the Soviet Union during that time. So we were trying to say, no, the buck stops here. We're gonna side with South Korea.
Yeah.
The problem was there was no leadership in South Korea, so we were fighting this war.
Yeah.
For them, even though they weren't really for us totally. It was like a crony leadership, Anyway, I don't want to get too much into the details of the Vietnam War. Go watch the Ken Burns documentary if you want to get some details on the Vietnam War. It's brilliant. But anyways, so there was a huge movement that happened in the United States because there was still a draft system in place at that time. And people were being drafted to go to this war that we didn't even know why we were there.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like after 20 years of being in Iraq and Afghanistan, we don't know why we're there.
Yeah.
Osama bin Laden's dead. We've beaten the Taliban multiple times at this point. They resurge, we beat them down. They resurge, we beat them down. But they don't go away.
Yeah.
Because they're a part of this region.
Yeah.
So we don't know why we're there. And so that really, in the 60s, raised up a group of young people that protested the draft, burned their draft cards, fled to Canada, led marches into Washington and universities. And it was a whole movement. Some, painted as hippies during that time. That also was going on. Right. A lot of psychedelics, a lot of drug use during that time too. I'm not discounting all of that stuff that went on, but it was a powerful movement that really did and make some lasting change, and did turn the course of that war with the successive presidents that were in place.
Yeah.
Like they had to move us out of that war. How we left that war was horrific. It was horrific because we just kind of left the South Vietnam to just be taken over. And we got out on helicopters and like these people are like trying to hang on to the helicopters to get their families out.
Yeah.
And like we had no presence and no naval presence to help get them out on boats or anything like that. So the atrocities that took place after we left, I have no idea. We don't know. We don't know how terrible it was. It wasn't good though.
Yeah.
We do know that. So, stuff like that is a great example of what we need to look out for and fight against again if it pops up.
Yeah.
And I feel like for things that matter as much as that war mattered, like we didn't do that for Iraq and Afghanistan. And I don't know if that's because of the propaganda that was sort of coming towards us. Like we got to fight terrorism there so it's not on our own soil.
Yeah.
And 9/11 was still just so near and it hurt so much that like we couldn't just see ourselves or get ourselves up to fighting against this and saying no more.
Right.
No more. Bring our troops home.
Yeah.
And even in stuff like that, my mindset has really shifted over the past maybe 5 years because like I was in favor of that war at the beginning. I'm like, Saddam Hussein was throwing his family and, political dissidents in blenders.
Yeah.
He was blending human beings because he was a jerk. He was a terrible, evil human being. And I'm glad that he's dead. I'm glad that we called him. I'm glad that he's dead because he's evil. Did we need to be in Iraq? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did we have a plan for Iraq? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like that, those are the things that are still not resolved now. And I don't know if there was ever a plan at the beginning.
You would hope that there was.
Yeah.
You would hope that there was. I guess like
you would hope, but like also just listening to a lot of like military people, I'm not against war.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not against killing terrorists.
Mm-hmm.
I think they should die. They are horrible people who do horrible things to other human beings, and they should die quickly and painfully. No, I mean, I'm serious. Like the things that they're doing to, because I'm talking about terrorists.
Right.
I'm not talking about people who feel like we're invaders and are trying to protect their land.
Right.
I can sympathize and understand that, but terrorists come into these villages,
right? No,
and
I know,
rape and pillage and kill and maim those villagers, and those villagers live in fear of those terrorists, so they fight against the Americans because of the fear that the terrorist has instilled by doing horrific things to those people. Yeah. So I'm fine with killing them, but we don't have to be there forever to do that. No, we don't even. Our special ops are so proficient and are so good. If we actually poured all of our military industrial complex money into special ops and just focus on terrorism in that way, we could be just as effective and not have that military presence in these countries where we're not wanted.
Right. I always I don't know much about this, so I really can't talk about it. And I've never come to a full I'm not sure how I stand with all the wars and everything, but you would hope that there's a plan going into a war. That would be probably something that I wouldn't change on, like an end plan. What's our goal here? And that way you can work towards it. But also I always wonder, how much is there politics going on that we don't know about? Yeah. You know, I feel like that plays a big thing into it, a big role. We will never know.
The thing also that is
we
really
won't know.
The thing that's really influenced not only me becoming more knowledgeable about these things, like doing my own research and listening to more voices on all of this stuff, because it used to be the conservative position that some wars are good, you gotta fight bad guys, you gotta support your military, whatever they're doing, and I do, but you don't have to support the actions of your government who are sending the military to not also you can support your military.
You can support the
and
people
veterans
without
supporting some of the actions being taken by the government.
Right.
And that's kind of where I'm at. And the one thing, and I try to talk with a lot of people about this because it's really bothered me, is what we're doing in Syria right now. And this goes back to Obama. Obama decided without the approval of Congress, which if you take any military action in a sovereign nation where that leader in that nation does not desire for you to take military action, it's an act of war. Oh, and any act of war, like when we invaded Iraq, George Bush had to take that before Congress and get approval, which he did, to invade Iraq.
Right.
You have to do that. It's in the Constitution. When Obama was there, he decided to bomb, I think it's, is it Arafat? Arafat? I can't remember the leader's name at that time of Syria, but he decided to bomb Syria. Never got congressional approval. So that is an act of war, they call it, and it must go before Congress, but Congress just kind of abdicated their responsibility.
Why?
In that case, I'm not sure, but no one spoke up and said, I shouldn't say that. I'm sure there were some that spoke up and were like, this needs congressional approval. What are we doing?
Right.
But again, you could bring in politics to that, and I don't. Let me get to this point. So then Trump is the next president, and there were some things going on in Syria near the beginning of his presidency. He decides to bomb Syria. Doesn't get any more congressional approval for these military actions. So now here's a Democrat and Republican president
doing
bombing Syria without congressional approval. Now, you could argue that Trump is just working on the precedent that's set by Obama.
So, but why did Congress not do anything for Trump either?
I don't know. But this is the thing. So this is really what opened my eyes, is when I see two successive, and now, let me just finish this up. Biden, just this past week, bombed Syria.
Oh my goodness.
No congressional approval. So we have 3 consecutive presidents of different parties, 2 of the same and 1 of a different party, that took similar military actions in a sovereign nation without congressional approval, which is part of the Constitution. Like it's you have to get, if it's an act of war, Congress has to approve it.
So do you think that, like, and I can say this because I'm one of them, but do you think it's because, like, America is so uneducated on what is happening that no one cares or really knows to, like, stand up? Like, when the government didn't have so much power, like in the beginning when our country started, like, and I could be wrong about this, but it seems like every citizen was fairly involved. Like, they knew what was going on with the country. Like, I mean, like, they read the news when there was a newspaper. They would read the newspaper, like, whenever it came, and they knew what was happening.
Right.
But, like, now there's so much to hear and listen to. I feel like we don't, and maybe I'm just ignorant. I mean, I know I don't know a lot, but I feel like there's a lot like me who doesn't know everything that's going on.
Yeah.
Like, and it's our fault because we're not paying attention.
Well, okay. So,
but, like, is it because we, the people, are just like, we don't know, so we don't know. So we're not going to push anyone or, like, say we don't like that because we don't even know.
Yes. So let me kind of wrap up the Syria thing, and you can give me your thoughts on this. So something that really stood out to me and really bothered me deeply was, as everyone knows, the media was not too kind to Trump during his presidency. The one time that they applauded him and said he was finally acting presidential, which is kind of the whole knock on him. He wasn't presidential. He didn't act like a president should act. Whatever that means. I don't know what that means. But the one time that they said he acted presidential was after he bombed Syria.
Yikes. This is making me like...
And you can go back. You can watch CNN. You can watch MSNBC clips from that time. There are recordings on YouTube. Go watch it. The one time that they were positive about his presidency was after he bombed Syria.
You're like, what is going on?
It's weird, right?
That's weird. Because you would think that they would take everything you just said about, like, the Congress him not asking for permission. Yeah. Like, you would think they would bash that on his head and make him look like, like they always did. Like, he doesn't follow the rules and he does whatever he wants and he's a dictator. Like, you would think they would totally jump on that.
Yeah.
Because
there are people that are talking about this. There are journalists. The problem is it's all independent.
Yeah.
There's, like, that Breaking Points show that I've talked about before with Crystal and Sagar, that they talk about this all the time. As soon as Joe Biden bombed Syria this past week, they were sort of showing the progression of presidents that all took these non-congressional actions against a sovereign nation.
Yeah.
And I hope I'm saying sovereign nation right. I don't really know if that's a correct term, but it's basically a nation with a government structure that does not desire you to bomb them.
Right.
That's all that basically makes those actions an act of war.
Right. Like, they didn't say, hey, we need your help. Can you do this for us? Yeah.
Exactly. If they're like, no, please don't bomb us.
Right.
And then you do it, it's an act of war, which makes sense.
Yeah.
Don't bomb us. You know, if someone did that in America, like, well, I saw a bad guy.
Yeah.
Don't drop bombs on us. Right. Like, we would be pissed off.
Yeah.
But somehow it's okay if we do it.
Yeah. No, that's
in those other countries.
Cool.
And wonder why they don't hate us.
Right. I did not know that.
Yeah. So stuff like that has really awakened my mind to the fact that there's a lot of other things going on politically, financially. I talked about the military industrial complex. That goes all the way back to Dwight Eisenhower spoke about the military industrial complex in one of his presidential speeches. And Trump talked about it, but everybody just laughs when Trump says something. But like you can go back to an actual military general who became president who said there is a military industrial complex that is economically fueled by war, by conflict. So they will, if it's not there, they'll make it because they make money off of the funding that they get from Congress to make the weapons. They get the funding for the troops. They get the funding for technology and development.
Yikes.
There is a whole, and you can see this like with companies like Raytheon and what's some other ones that, like Raytheon's like a security company, and there's so many government officials that will go into Congress and there'll be representatives or state officials or federal officials, and then they'll move into the private sector after serving, and then they'll serve in these companies. So it's this they call it revolving door.
Yeah.
And you see this all the time. Some of the people like in Trump's administration, like one of the people that advised him on a lot of these military actions that we talked about in Syria are people that have also served with I'm trying to remember who the one guy, he has like a white mustache. I forget his name now, but he served with past presidents.
Oh boy.
And advised them on war and military actions. And a lot of these guys are on the payrolls of some of these military companies that make money from production for military action.
That's,
And now we sound like conspiracy theorists.
I know.
But this is stuff that we need to be aware of because greed and power are the enemies of freedom.
Yeah. And I think something to keep in mind, especially because like for me, my natural tendency is to be like, oh no, like they wouldn't do that. Like I'm always like giving people the benefit of the doubt. Yeah, I said that right.
You're still remembering Americans coming down Times Square after World War II and loving and kissing and like,
But at the same time,
victory,
like we have to remember, which we know is true, that like selfishness like is not quenched and power isn't either. So like as soon as you get in a spot like that, or anyone, any of our government officials, like it takes, like they have to really be, there has to be something that's grounding them for them not to climb up the ladder of greed and power.
Yes.
Like what is holding them down?
Not much.
Not much. And so like, I think
definitely not religion. Definitely not Christianity.
Right. And I mean, there that is. Yeah. So like, that's just going to happen. And if we're not aware and we're not fighting and we're not changing the culture for the better.
That's it. All of this talk, all of this stuff should make you afraid, and it should lead you to want to be a better person and a better community leader, a better friend, parent, teacher, worker, anything that you can do to better yourself and your community, your immediate community, family and community is going to be the best thing for this country.
Yeah.
Because the country is really dying at the university level right now. We've talked about education systems in the past and it's crumbling, and I'm glad. I hope people don't send their kids to college anymore, sends them to trade schools. Maybe we can have an industrial revolution again in our country.
And then college can come back years later and be what it was before.
And it can be a place of education, which it's not now.
Yeah.
It's a re-education camp. Of social activism, which is so much different than the activism that I was talking about that occurred in the 60s as a result or in part due to the Vietnam War. It's so different. It's so different. Like, one of the things that really struck me today in the Yeon Mi Park interview was that she was talking about the fact that so many people that when she came to America, she saw so many people like on social media or just, at colleges, like just to the point of tears, like doing like fundraisers and things like that. And she's like, oh my, I wonder what they're fundraising for.
Oh boy.
And it was like animal activists.
I knew you were going to say that.
It was animal activists. Now listen to me. She had no problem with animal activism. She's like, I understand the fight. It's a fight for creatures that cannot speak for themselves.
Right. Good. Right.
You need that. These
that.
creatures cannot speak for themselves, so you need people to say, hey, let's not kill all the dolphins.
Yeah.
Let's not, kill all the sharks.
Right.
Even though we want that, shark fin soup or whatever that big popular thing was. But the fact that there are literally millions of people starving in North Korea right now, and there is just such a disregard for those people. There's such a, let's push that out of our minds and instead fight for animals.
Yeah.
I'm going to stay on that one so I don't get off on other tangents, but like, wow.
Yeah.
How sad. How sad and comfortable are we that, because there are, I forget how many, what are there, 7 billion people on Earth, something like that. And we produce enough food for 10 billion people.
Yes, I remember hearing, yeah.
And like, there is actually a class of people that Kim Jong-un, I think is the president or leader, dear leader of North Korea right now, has literally, it's the people on like the outskirts. It's like the Hunger Games, the people in like the furthest districts.
Right.
Literally, they're districts. It's the Hunger Games in North Korea have been deemed the people that have to fend for themselves and no food will be provided to them. And literally South Korea, especially after like there was a lot of, I think like flooding or something had occurred there, like some type of natural disasters occurred there. South Korea is like, can we provide medical aid? And he was like, no.
So awful.
And you're like, this is going on right now. There is a Holocaust going on right now in North Korea.
Yeah.
Like if we were to be interventionalist or I think that's the right word. If we were to intervene in a foreign thing, foreign war, a foreign cause, whatever you want to call it, that's the place.
Yeah.
And honestly, you know what's even more interesting? She actually doesn't really advocate for military action being the course of action that we take to help North Korea. Do you know what she calls for? She calls for action against China. She says the CCP, the Communist Chinese Communist Party, is the reason why North Korea exists.
Wow.
They were like, if China stopped sending food to North Korea for 1 week, they would be done.
Oh, so that's how it works. I know she said things like that before, but I never understood how exactly that worked.
Yeah.
I know there's other things, but
also,
so is that where he
gets
his food? Like the leader?
Oh yeah.
So like it's
he gets wine, he gets
but
like
it's not
all
from
the amenities.
like the first district if we're going to go with those terms.
Well, the first district is made mostly of military. So, you know what? This was an interesting fact. North Korea has the largest or the fourth largest military in the world.
Oh my.
And they don't fight anybody. Do you know why they exist?
Is that like China's reserve?
No. Do you know why they exist?
To protect him?
To fight their people.
Oh my.
They have the fourth largest army in the world to enslave their people.
So
they don't do any military action. None.
I believe that. But do those other groups, I know there's like these like castes or districts that she explains.
Yeah.
But like do they
It's more of a it's more of a class system.
But like, do the higher up classes know the depravity of the lower class? Or are they just kind of told like those are bad people? Like,
no, they know the depravity.
But they're just so scared to not go lower.
Yeah, because you can't marry up. Okay. You only can marry down. So like if you are in a lower caste system and you marry someone from a higher caste system, you bring that person down to your class system, I should say. Because it's not really a caste. Caste is a more racially motivated system that exists in India.
Yeah.
This is more class-based. This is more like...
Because he just divided it up. There wasn't really any,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It was all dependent on how much land you owned, how much... and that was negative also because it's communism. So the property owners were the oppressors. So
somehow they're justifying bringing these people who didn't have anything up to having something and being like, you bad people that you had stuff. Well, you're going to have nothing now.
Communism in North Korea is equality for all, and some people are just more equal than others.
Wow.
That's communism.
So terrifying.
Yay. Yay. I love teaching it in our universities. It's so great.
Goodness.
Marxism.
It just makes me so, it does make me sad. The whole like going back to like the animal activists, like I don't want to come across like I don't care. Like I do care about nature and I do care about our animals. And I think we should take care of our planet.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like it's been a pet peeve since I've been younger when I started to notice that like we care more about animals than we do people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I think part of that's just because it's easier because animals are cuter and they're like, they don't do bad things to you or other people. But like, how evil is that?
But there's an entire...
Like, how awful is that we would totally ignore people who are being abused and are not fed and just suffering. Ignore them.
Yeah.
To care for these animals.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the problem, right? Like, I'm sure that if we actually change the culture enough to value humans as they should be above animals, we would then be able to care for animals and then for nature. Like, we would have our priorities right.
Yeah.
And we would be able to better do that.
Yeah.
I don't know. It makes me upset.
I'm just thinking about where that could have stemmed from. And I have a few thoughts. One of the thought is if we care about people, we'll have to relinquish some of our hateful ideologies and we won't be able to demonize people so easily.
Mm-hmm.
If we actually cared about humanity.
Yes.
And we cared about people that share our biology, shared our minds, shared our ability to feel, shared our ability to perceive and to go about this life and feel the same things and the same hurts and pains, and we all go through it. We all go through it. We wouldn't be able to say that's a demon.
Yeah.
Or whatever your demon is, that's a conservative, that's a liberal, that's a whatever label you place on people to demonize them, to other them. You can't do that if you actually cared about humans.
That's a really good point.
I think deeper than that, though, I wonder if it stems from our inability to really care for ourselves. Like I worry about this culture that, like, just for example, like, I have a lot of friends that I talk to about like exercise and diet and different things like that. And these friends are in many cases overweight. And because I care for them, because I love them, I want to bring up these conversations and help them in any way I can to heal their bodies. And that's not the norm. That's not the norm. We have a culture that would rather yell, kick, and scream to excuse your unhealthy behaviors or bodies than to help you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what fat shaming is. I hate fat shaming because it is so mean.
Mm-hmm.
It is so hateful. And I'm not using that word lightly.
Yeah.
Like if you if you're like, oh, you fat shame, then you are a hateful person. Because I love that person.
Yeah.
And like, I don't want to be mean to them.
Right.
There's a difference.
Yeah.
There's fat shaming where it's like
actually
you
fat shaming.
Yeah, you pig, you piece of crap, you fat, what, like, okay.
That is fat shaming.
But if it's not blatant like that, like people working out is fat shaming because there are people who don't.
Yeah.
This
is like double speech here.
Yeah, double speak. Yeah.
Double speak.
Yeah, from 1984. Like it's absolutely absurd and makes me so angry because I am so desiring to help other people.
Right. You're saying you hate because the way you're talking, it like could be misconstrued. You're saying you don't like that term.
I hate that term.
That's what you're saying.
I do. I hate fat
because
shaming.
What we consider to be fat shaming, when we use that word in our culture, it's like basically you're not allowed to help that person. Right. Is really what it is. If you say anything about their overweightness, you're making them feel bad. That's what the culture is telling us. When really, maybe if you actually care about that person, you want them to be healthy and live the best life that they can live.
Right.
Not because you think you're better than them or because you think they're less than, but just because you're like, you could feel better, you could live better. I want what's best for you. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the biggest fat shamers are the people that come after people that get healthy. I mean, those are the biggest fat shamers.
Yeah.
Like seriously, like there's been some celebrities or singers or I think like Adele. Adele lost a bunch of weight.
Oh, I didn't know
and
that.
All of these fat people, and you are fat, like, sorry, came after her and was just like, you were beautiful before, like, why do you got to flaunt that you're skinny now? Like, all of this stuff.
Okay, so
nobody likes. Go ahead, you go.
No, that I don't want to interrupt you, but that brings me back to your original question and your comment, which I agree with. So I'm just gonna take it like you said originally, that it's because we are valuing animals more because we don't want to like say that people are like
more valuable.
Yeah, are more valuable. We don't want to, because then we can't like demonize people is what you originally said.
Yeah.
And then you went a step down deeper and said that it may be because we don't care about ourselves. And I think that that's all true. And I think it then to even go deeper, it's because we don't know or believe the value that we personally have. That like me and you and every other person is literally so important and so special.
Yeah.
Like they have a purpose. Like I believe that God created them for a purpose.
Yeah.
And they're very valuable. And so when we don't believe that about ourselves, then as a result, we don't care about ourselves, or we let ourselves be mistreated, or we mistreat ourselves, or we don't care about other people as much because we don't believe that that person is that important.
Yeah.
And then to go back to the one comment that you made, from that, even if we do realize that maybe we're important, I think the hard part of seeing everyone as that important is that then we have to relinquish the things that maybe make us comfortable. Like I can see that in my own life at how it's, so if you actually care about the people that you encounter every day that maybe like need help that day, like it's easy to just be like, well, whatever, like that's their own fault. Or like to just kind of pass them by.
Yeah.
When like I might have the means to help that person, whether it's just taking a minute to hear what they have to say. Maybe they're hurting, or maybe they literally need a lunch. Like you just go buy them lunch, you know, like it's easy for us to kind of just turn a blind eye and be like, yeah, I'm just going to pretend like I didn't see that so that I can go on my merry way and be comfortable.
Yeah.
And I think that's why, going all the way back, that's why we can value animals more, because it's easier if we just don't know our value, or even if we do, to acknowledge that for other people. It makes us uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
We have to actually do something about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And if we can't come together on something as simple as valuing humanity, that's so scary for our freedom.
Yeah.
Like, if we have so many people divided by politics, by social situations, social change, how can we ever come together and fight systems that seem so together? And I'm talking Republican and Democrat. How do you fight a government system that desires nothing else but to take your freedom away?
Yeah.
Because they'll gain from it.
Right.
They'll set up new systems. They'll set up, they'll make money from it.
Yeah.
They'll make money from it. And I'm just like, man, what a plan. What a plan to divide us and to make us hate ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Man, what a plan.
Yeah, we talked about earlier about what grounds these politicians, to not make them run up the ladder of power and greed. And it's like, for me, I think it's God that will do that. But even if you wanted to, maybe you don't believe that, you're not ready to believe that yet. Like, just grounding in the fact that every human being has the same value as you. Like, if we actually understood that in our culture and we began to live that out as us ordinary people who don't have much influence, like, and then that caught on, like, how that would change the world. Because if everyone started to believe that, now you don't feel right taking advantage of the less fortunate person to gain some money or to gain power. Yeah. Now it's not okay to push aside that person that is whatever, struggling. Now we have to look at people as ourselves. We have to look at people as that value, that's what keeps us grounded. And then it's not, you can't justify power or greed then. Mm-hmm. Like, you just can't.
Yeah.
So, like, if everyone lived like that, like, it would solve so many problems. It would solve so many problems.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard something from Tony Robbins the other day. Anthony Robbins, he's like a self-help motivational speaker guy. Mm-hmm. And he was talking about kind of what is one of the most important things that you can do to add more love to your life. And he said, serve others. Mm. And that's first. Like, the Bible says, love your neighbor as yourself. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people are trying to get an equal balance of self-love. And usually we try to get that self-love in first, because it's like, you can't love others if you don't love yourself. I've heard that phrase before, but he's like, all that's bullcrap. Mm-hmm. He's like, love others. Serve others. Everything that you do, like this podcast, it should be to serve somebody.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be for any like monetary or self-adulating gain on my part.
Right.
Like, I want to love what I do and love, my ability to do this podcast. But like, it should be first. I should be thinking about, how is this going to entertain or serve the conversation, serve somebody else.
Yeah.
And I will feel love for myself then.
Yes.
And it was so interesting to me, like, because this guy he's spiritual, like that type of character, where he's not he's not like this full-fledged believer. His life surely doesn't reflect that. But like, he's a solid dude in terms of looking at all the religions and all the things kind of out there, these value systems that are out there, and trying to pinpoint the things from his own experience. And he's spent, I don't know, at least 30 years doing these conferences and doing these motivational things that are literally taking people, like he's literally saved people from suicide.
Yeah. That's awesome.
At these conferences. You know, people are ready to kill themselves, come to these things, and he kind of frees them of that mindset. And then they go on to be successful people. Like,
that's amazing.
And that's what he's found out of all of this. He's like, serving others.
Right.
That's where I found fulfillment. That's where I found love. That's where, he's like, you could tell me all day long how much what I've said or what I've done has meant to your life. I could get that all day long and it wouldn't matter. It was when I would go out and do something that I would actually feel that love. It wasn't until I was saving that person from suicide that I actually felt love.
Right.
It was just an amazing point that I thought was so true.
Yeah.
And I just thought we should just put that out there, because I run into that a lot. I've definitely tried to work on myself so I'll be a better server.
Yeah.
And it's really you work on yourself through service.
Yes.
And
you learn a lot about yourself when you serve.
Yeah. And we're not a culture of that right now. We're not a culture of servers. We're a culture of lovers.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing, because I agree. I agree with what you just said and with what he said, but I'm curious to know, and like I haven't, because I just thought of this now, I haven't thought through this totally, but like, I wonder if he would say that he finds his value in that. Like, which isn't not necessarily bad, except when your value, like, I'm not saying anything bad about him, because what he's doing is awesome. But like, when you find your value in something that you do and that you do well, and so it's successful and you feel value and purpose in it, it can make you feel awful if at whatever point you're not able to do that, or you're not getting that feedback that you want.
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, what am I worth then anymore? And I just put that out there because I think that, I mean, I've fallen into that before, where I haven't had my value in who God says I am, and I've had my value in something else. And then I realized that, like, whatever that is, maybe I'm not as good at it as I thought, or I'm not meeting the par that I want to meet.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, then what? Like, then you feel bad about yourself. And I just put that out there because, like, even something you're really good at, like, that's not always healthy to put your value in that. Not that you should stop doing that, but like, as soon as that's taken away, are you going to feel worthless again? But
yeah, no, I think that's so true. And you should find your value in God. If you're a Christian, he should define you, because he created you. Yeah. You know, and you were created in the image of the divine, as we talk about a lot on this podcast, because that's pretty valuable.
And there's freedom in that, because then when you go out to serve others, you can serve them out of an overflow, and not out of a, oh my goodness, like, if I don't do good at this, or if what I'm doing doesn't work for this person, I am bad. I didn't meet up. I'm not good. And you could go through this whole dramatic circle here, but like, our serving should be out of an overflow. Like, I want to bless you because I am blessed. Like, I want to serve you because God has forgiven me and he is with me, and I couldn't ask for anything better. Yeah. And I just think that that's important, since I've experienced going the wrong way in my own life, and it's easy to do that because it's nice to find value in what you can do on your own. But yeah, it should be out of an overflow. That's my point.
Yeah. Freedom. I think that's a good place to end this. I can go on and talk about freedom for a while and bring up some other aspects of it, but maybe we can do that on the Home Edition podcast.
Sounds good.
Talk about it from more of a home perspective, teaching perspective. Yeah. Yeah, I hope people I see this kind of rising up right now on social media, especially when it comes to like more American-centric holidays, where I see a lot of people kind of coming out, and there's this sort of overflow of patriotism that's sort of rising up in a lot of people's social media pages, and that's not really can't really take the pulse of a nation from that, because we're kind of bombarded by this sort of anti-American sentiment everywhere you look right now. It seems. I don't think that's the majority. I really don't. I think the majority of Americans are still very into America.
Yeah.
Very into what it stands for, who it's been, the good, bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm just saying, which I think we should definitely be loud about, because if that is the majority, then that's good. But we need to make our voices known, because I feel like the schooling system wants to tell a different narrative, a different story. And so when all of us older people get older, all the younger people are going to think differently. So
yeah. And we'll have to talk about, we didn't really like get too much into my like original question about like the balance between being an American and being a Christian. And like maybe we can talk about that another time, because like I am interested to get some of your thoughts on that, because like I struggle with it. I struggle to know like how patriotic should I be, and does this like take anything away from who I am as a Christian? Because like I don't want to be the Christian that's also like so many of the Christians that followed Trump. And there's not, that's not a knock on Trump. That's not a knock on those people. But I don't think a lot of those people were actually Christians to begin with. And that's a big statement, I guess. But like, they, just like non-Christians, are flocking to politics right now to save them. A lot of people flock to Trump. A lot of Christians flock to Trump to save them from the evils of the Democrats. And I don't think that's our place.
Yeah.
Not that Christians shouldn't be involved in politics. They should.
Right.
We're a part of this nation. We're a part of the politic of this nation.
Right.
We should be involved. But government's not our savior.
Yes. Yeah. My initial thought, and this is a short answer, I think. But my initial thought on that is, we go out into the world like as believers of Jesus. And so people should know that about us first.
Yes.
And then if they have questions about our political view, we can tell them.
Right. From a place of our understanding of what God thinks.
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah. So we would say, oh yeah, like I'm not a political person, so I don't know a lot, but like you would say, yeah, I voted for this politician because they stand on these things, and I feel like that holds value for humans, and that's going to help us in this way, whatever it is. So I voted for that person. But I feel like we go wonky when we're like, I voted for this person because he's a Republican, and and you're like,
I saw him pray,
and he is a Christian because he prayed. Did you see that? Here, I'm gonna pull it up on my phone right now. It's on YouTube. I'll show you.
Oh God, help us!
But like, I think that's where we don't realize it, but then we're flipping back onto like hope in man.
Yeah.
Whereas we're not seeing it like, okay, this person is they might not even believe in the things that they're standing for, but that's what they're standing for right now. So I'm going to vote for that person.
Right.
And
I think those things need to happen in our private conversations with people. And we need to, I'm getting more and more comfortable at just being open with that stuff with my friends and family and different things like that. I'm still wrestling with like the public persona, like what I put out on social media and what I talk about in larger places. Like if I'm at church and I'm, speaking to the whole congregation or what, things of that nature where politics comes in and stays out.
Yeah. Yeah.
That whole thing, because I love what Pastor Carey talked about. I think it was on Saturday when he was preaching. He talked about the fact that like politics is just a hindrance to him when it comes to his evangelism, like his desire to like show Jesus and introduce Jesus to people.
Yeah.
Because he's like, Jesus cares so much about Democrats and he cares so much about Republicans. Yeah. And
everyone in between.
Getting into a fight about politics is such a hindrance of me having a Democrat or a Republican meet Jesus.
Yes.
And that's been on my mind, and I've been wrestling with that because I don't give a flying F about politics in lieu of someone coming to a knowledge of Jesus and how much he loves them.
Yeah.
And that's my first purpose in this life is to introduce people to that person and that thing more than a policy that I stand for.
Right.
Like I want them to know Jesus. Yeah. And so that's where I'm at right now with that. And maybe we could have more conversations about that because like that's just been something that's been weighing on me and like really convicting me too. Because so much of the stuff out there, don't get me wrong, I love memes. I love like making fun of stupidity.
Yeah.
I think it's great. I think we should make fun of our government when they're idiots.
Yeah.
When they're stupid.
Uh-huh.
And a lot of our politicians are idiots. They're dumb. And we should make fun of them because it's fun. But
you can make fun of the stupidity without making fun of the person.
Right. Well, and that's something too. That's something too. And I put this out the other day on social media. I was just like, remember that the people you're making fun of for political reasons are still people.
Yeah.
Just remember that.
Yeah.
Like Joe Biden, poor guy, can't hold it together right now. I seriously am like, poor guy. Like it's really hard to make fun of him. Actually, no, that's not true. It's really easy to make fun of him. But it's difficult from a moral perspective because the poor dude is fading. And like, we have to remember that is a human.
Right.
That is a human who desperately needs Jesus.
That's why I always say, if we can, we need to make fun of or point out or say, I reject that behavior or that thought process.
Right.
Like, and that's where, the scripture says to give grace whenever you speak to like, I'm probably messing it up, but we're supposed to give grace when we speak. And I think the purpose for that is so that that person that you're talking about or that you're correcting has the opportunity to change their mind. They have the ability without feeling humiliated to change their mindset.
Yeah.
Because we've all been there where we've said idiot things and then later on in life we're like, wow, I was such an idiot. You're like, you almost like sweat to think about what you said, like
click on this podcast so many times.
Exactly. So like we have to give that grace that person, we're not labeling that person, but what they're doing, maybe we're totally against that and it's wrong. But like we want them to have a chance to like change their mind.
Right.
to like say, yeah, you're right. Like that wasn't right to say, or that wasn't right to do.
And there are nefarious characters that are just terrible people. There are evil people in this world. And we need to be aware of that. But we also need to pray for them. We need to give them the benefit of the doubt, like you're saying, and put forth a better idea rather than just knocking them for theirs. This is something that we've lost, and it's because we lost it in our universities. We lost the ability to think. We were told what to think, not how to think. So then we've lost all ability to come up with a better idea for the things that we're knocking.
Yeah. I think that would be how you could be that Christian in politics, though, is what you just said. Because if we, especially you, because you have a better handle of what's happening in politics, but like going at these things and saying, not just looking at like, oh, I don't know if I totally agree with my typical party's lean. So then your only other option is the other side, but it doesn't have to be that way. Like you can look at it through the lens of the Bible and what God would think and say, no, actually probably this would be the best solution. No one's offering this solution yet, but this is what I would propose. But just having like, more of an open mind and saying this would be the right way to go about it. And then that way people can see like who you are, well, who Jesus is really through how you view politics.
Yep. I agree. All right. Well, let's wrap it up here. Thanks everybody for listening to another episode of Just Breathing Home. Nope. Just Breathing with Laud Lungs. Where are we? Make sure that you have fun this weekend. I hope that everybody has an amazing July 4th, an amazing Independence Day weekend. Go celebrate your country. For all of this country's faults, its gains in terms of freedom, liberty, and capitalistic ventures in the pursuit of happiness are incredible. America alone, and you can go look at the stats, has literally pulled the world out of poverty. Like our success has literally raised the poverty levels around the globe. You can read Steven Pinker's work. You can go Jonathan Haidt. There's so many authors that have written about these things, outlining the benefits of what we've done as a nation, and its global impact. So celebrate this nation. The founders who said we're gonna separate from this monarchy at the time of England, and we're gonna create this new system of government that's never been done before. That has never been done since, honestly. There's no other nation that has drafted a constitution that even resembles ours, which is kind of funny when you think about it. It's like, we're pretty successful. Like, maybe others should try it.
It's available. You can look at it.
You can read it. Just translate it to your own language. Like, gosh. But it truly is one of a kind. It's amazing. Celebrate it. Have fun. Remember your freedom, because there are people that this weekend are going to continue living lives where they don't even know what the word freedom is. Never been introduced to it. And we need to remember those people as we cherish our freedoms. So we remember how frail it is. How easily it can be taken away. It wasn't there 200 years ago when this nation was founded. We were slaves to the monarchy. And it could be taken away so easily. We are one of the last countries on this earth that is free to the extent that we are right now from government. Celebrate that. Make that known to the world. Make that known in your families that are going to be coming to family gatherings and telling you about all the wrongs and woes of America and how we're such a terrible place and racist and all this type of stuff, say, one, shut up and have a piece of barbecue chicken, you weirdo. And then two, remind them of the things that we've done. Remind them of the people that have died. To give them the right to say that. Mm-hmm. You know, there's so many things going on where people are protesting the flag at the Olympics and people are,
oh my goodness.
You know, just all of this stuff that people are free to do.
Yeah, yeah.
And you know what? I applaud them using their freedom because it's another opportunity for people to say, isn't America pretty great?
Yeah, yeah.
That we're not throwing you in jail right now?
Right.
Isn't it
that you
pretty
don't
great?
All of a sudden disappear?
That you don't just disappear like in China. Just remember that. Have fun. Celebrate America. This is the best nation ever on the face of the earth. Yeah. So, love you all. See you on the next episode. Bye-bye.